Okay, cool. All right. Let's see. Oh, yeah, terrible reaction time there. Just as a note, like with any of these bosses, like 3 auto attacks and then an ability comes. That's how every single one of these bosses works. So when it comes down to it, like you just need to, if you want to be a good player, you just need to take a look at like when the boss is auto attacking, and you know after that 3rd one there's gonna be an ability coming out, which is what's allowed me to get into like a lot of higher content by paying attention to actually how the boss works and not just like the size of my numbers or other irrelevant things to actual progression. As a note, there isn't that much actual progression in the game until you get to the top, which is, I think one of the reasons why I started my own group. It's like, well, we don't want overgeared players to remove mechanics. And when you actually go through an instance and fight the boss like to the teeth and experience all the mechanics, like when you go back in there, even if you're skipping them because you have too high a DPS or other things like that, like it's still it's still a better experience, right? Because you actually know the content, instead of just getting carried through it. Like work really relates reward, right? If you work for something, it's that much more valuable. I don't see a lot of players focusing on that, but this is a mobile game, and so you have a lot of mobile players, which there's no negative about being a mobile player, but I find on average that they're more entitled and they just want instant gratification, and that's what a lot of mobile games are built to. So there's no judgment on that. Like I was saying and will say in other videos is I really don't care what other people do. The way that I'm playing this game is I'm building a group up, and we are just going to go through content at our pace. Right? You can pay to win, you can do other things like that, but regardless, you can only get so far so fast. And I'm the one who would prefer to grind it and make things a little bit more difficult and experience the content, and it's just generally better. Um, I'm certainly not against like bringing extra people in either. I'd rather get a player that if they want the kill. I've actually refused like carries on at certain points just because it prevents me from getting to know the mechanics or other things like that. Once I'm super comfortable with something, I'm happy to go in and have a better player see what I can do. Because remember, every time people work with you, they see your quality of play, right? So that's more important to me for the actual long run than getting some gear this week or just getting a couple levels better than what I have. Um, I'm trying to do streaming and community hosting and like raid leading and those kinds of things, and my contributions speak for itself. But at the end of the day, there's no limit on the amount that I can do as far as quality of raider. And this is the way I got noticed in WoW and other things like that, by just always being on top of my game, always like giving the actual most to people that are in my group, because this person like you has a life and an agenda, and whatever they're doing that day is pretty valuable. So there's no reason why you wouldn't, have the best quality play unless you're distracted or other things like that. And the auto follow features and other things like that in this game I think are really excellent, right? We can talk a little bit more about that. Might as well, since this isn't the most exciting content. I'm essentially like autopiloting this anyways. But when it comes down to it, there's shit. What was I talking about just now? Yeah, there's no reason why you wouldn't play a game to your actual full extent, but the auto follow options allow for player engagement. I think the designers got it right in the sense of, all right, well, let's create this so the most amount of people will play, right? Essentially, I can make comments on other parts of the game, and if you're a professional gamer, I'd love to hear what your actual comments are, or if you're just a gamer, and I'd love to hear what your comments are. It's always good to hear what people have to say. And as you can see, I just got the scale there for the quest, so moving on to the next part, going to Scarflanes. But when it comes down to it, so we have an example of like Microsoft's pricing structure for software back in the day. When we reduced down to like student prices, we noticed that students can now buy software, right? If I want everybody to have Microsoft Word, I make it so I have tiering of, and I can draw you a graph and those kinds of things, but I have tiering of prices to hit certain price points where somebody wouldn't come into the market. It's the same way with gaming. Like, some people want to grind hardcore. Some people just want it all right away. If you can find a blending of ways to offer that to your community, you can have a greater community base and more people to do stuff with. Players get to do their content quicker. Like I said, remember, instant gratification is the big like underlying reward process. So I really do like what the developers have done here, because somebody from WoW might say, all right, well, this game isn't as great and it's not as mechanics heavy and other things. I would agree with you. You know, this isn't as high quality of a game, and it's basically a WoW clone and other things, but NetEase did reasonably well, you know, whatever their goals were. For what I wanted, for what I was looking for, a mobile game that I could also play on my computer for actual like good quality rating, because mobile sucks for rating in my opinion. Some of you might do it great, but just for me, it doesn't work very well, right? So there's no comment on how you play or anything like that. There's just a comment on how I prefer, you know. So, okay, you know, but yeah, when it comes down to it, you want to make a game accessible. You know, it's all about making the experience for your player base like as best as possible. It's just classic economics. So yeah, you know, I think they did it reasonably well. You know, I'm semi-distracted by the game here to have a philosophical conversation on gaming, but, you know, those are some of the underlying thoughts behind, like, why you play the absolute best, why you optimize, why you have food ready and potions and other things like that before raid. These are the things I expect of my raiders, and so, yeah, you might as well continue to just give that if that's what you expect of yourself, and essentially play the game however you want. It's irrelevant, you know. It's all about maximizing your personal rate of return to happiness and making sure that you're enjoying the game, because there's literally no other way to live. Oh, baby's waking up here. I'm gonna have to cut this short, and we're pretty much at the end of the video anyways. So I'll have to see. We shall have to see. Yep, baby's back asleep. Nice. Nice. You know, and you know, that's sort of another comment, is like, I don't know what stage you're at, you know, currently. Whatever it is fine. But for me, you know, somebody with a parent, you know, as a parent and whatnot, there's, I don't even know why I use that, but there's got to be like a balance, right? As you know, with all things. So a game like this, where I can play on my phone and I can get, you know, other things done. I can replace Clash of Clans and like other games like that during my mobile time, and then have like a game that I can play after the little one goes to bed or whatnot is just perfect, like absolutely perfect. And this is sort of what I was looking for. Um, so yeah, no, this works out great. You know, I'm not looking to raid like Tupon Techno, Gentlemen's Club, whatever the top guilds are these days, cuties only, you know, people from my time that I raided with. I don't really need that from this game. I'm certainly not looking for that, and I think that's one of the reasons why I buy what I want, right? I play at the game level that I want. I play at the pace that I want, because I'm not trying to be the best. Right? It's irrelevant. Like, we are going to give the best theory and the best like approaches here, and I plan to do like interviews and other things like that with like top players. These things are easy to access to, and they love doing it. I love doing it. You know, it's really good for the community. Everything, you know, works out good, right? We both get what we want, but that's sort of the point right there. Is you need to figure out exactly what you want from gaming, right? From Crusaders of Light, and then you just play it to that level. There's really no reason why you would want to buy or pay to win or other things like that, or be unhappy with your gear or anything like that. There's no reason why you would feel that way if you basically set your own expectations. God, I saw this story of last night with my little one about how there's this chameleon, and he's going around copying all the animals because he wants to be anything other than himself. Right, and when it comes down to it, he just figures out at the end that he can't do his like basic functions, you know, or other things like that anymore, and he just wants to be who he is at the end of the story. And there's no reason why, just like clips of, you know, other things like that are just a little bit more of a shorter informational. But yeah, you know, I'm not at a top tier of rating yet. You know, we're gonna do some raid streaming. We're gonna do other things like that. But there's got to be like a point where, you know, you're basically saying, oh, okay, well, what are people going to actually find useful in here? And I just don't see like a lot of like basic gameplay and those kinds of things available. Additionally, you know, I'll put a shameless push out there that my raid group is doing something that you don't see on a lot of servers, where we're helping people actually do organized raids at, you know, a mid-level content.